weak, depressed and exhausted after the slightest effort. A report today from Emmee researchers confirms that the disease does exist. And as our science correspondent Andrew Veach now reports, it accuses many GPs of failing their patients by refusing to admit they're ill.
Okay.
Dr. Claire Fleming used to be an overworked GP. 4 years ago, she developed a range of illnesses, variously described as chronic fatigue syndrome, post-viral fatigue syndrome, and myalgic encephalomyelitis. For 3 months, she was bedridden. Only now has she recovered sufficiently to play with her children.
The symptoms vary a lot, but for me, it was mainly like having flu. And I just felt very, very ill. I also had some muscle pains and twitching, and I couldn't think clearly at all. I couldn't even concentrate enough to read. When I was at my most ill, it was impossible for me to do any sort of caring for the children. So yes, it's been devastating.
Like many of the doctors from whom she sought help, she did not know what the disease was, nor how to treat it. Today's report is the result of a 2-year investigation by a task force of senior doctors set up by patients' groups and financed in part by the Department of Health.
We all agree that there is a real condition here, however difficult it may be to describe, to diagnose or to name. And there are a lot of patients out there who need help and need care.
The report says that 1% of the population, as many as 500,000 people in Britain, may suffer some form of chronic fatigue syndrome. Perhaps 1 in 1,000 suffer the full-blown disease.
We know what it feels like to feel knackered, but you know, you get over this. What you feel like with this is a very different thing. It's a chronic ill syndrome.
1 minute it's the bowel that's not working, the next minute it's the brain that's not working, then the muscles don't want to work, then it's aches and pains, and it's the hearing that's hyperacute, so they don't like the door slamming, and then the light is a bit too light, so they want the dark. There are a whole host of funny things that go wrong with you. If you've ever experienced jet lag and had tried to put it into clear statements of what you think is wrong with you when you've travelled across several time zones, then I think you're just beginning to grasp how this disease affects people.
Researchers say possible causes include unknown viruses, failure to recover from an illness, stress, and glandular disorders. By coincidence or not, the symptoms are similar to those seen in farmers poisoned by organophosphate sheep dips. Brain scans provide a clue. They show that the blood supply to the brain stem, the small pink shaded area, is drastically reduced in some patients. But there may be no single cause, and there is no simple cure.
I think your first and appropriate treatment is an encounter with a health professional, maybe a GP or the practice nurse, who tells you you haven't got anything wrong with you. And that is a very, very common way in which patients are met for the first occasion and sometimes for the second and third occasion, and they may be actually dismissed to be told that it's actually all in the mind, it's an imaginary thing, and you haven't got anything wrong with you at all. Just pull yourself together, get back to work, and don't waste my time.
There is widespread ignorance, mismanagement and lack of support from other professionals, education authorities and society in general. And hopefully, certainly from the patient's point of view, this report will start to redress some of these inequalities which can make life so very difficult.
Yeah, that's what I'm after.
Claire Fleming helped to prepare today's report. It's been sent to the Department of Health and the Medical Royal Colleges in the hope that it will form the basis for recommendations to doctors on how to recognise and treat the disease that was once dismissed as yuppie flu.